My name is Matt, and what you're looking at is a redstone counter. It's actually encased in a big building that I've built. This is on my friend's server, so I had help building it. And basically what it does is it's a 9-segment display that when you press the button it goes up a number, so all the way up to 15, so it goes up to 5, 6. Now the reason I've got this with a button is at the moment it's on an online server, so I could wire it up to something called a clock, which we'll be covering in this episode, where it will keep doing on its own, it will count up by itself, and I won't have to click this button. But since the server is a multiplayer server, it can sometimes cause Redstone's torches to disappear, which stops it from working, of course. And over the course of this little series I'm going to be doing, I'll try and teach you everything about, as much as I know about redstone, so that you could probably build one of these yourself. So let's have a look inside. In fact, so I'll show you that this goes up to 15 all the way first, so 12. Sometimes you have to give it a bit of time as there's a bit of a delay. And shut up, cow. So 13, 14. Sometimes it flashes to different. Sometimes it flashes to different numbers in between, but we'll get to that and we'll see why that happens. So 15, it'll turn off. Then it'll go to 1, and it'll reset. So we'll have a look inside. Yeah, I've tried my best to make it look as nice as I can in here. So yeah, you can see that it's fairly big, and to some people it might be fairly complex as well. You may not be able to understand how it all works at the moment, but like I said, over the course of this series I'm going to be trying to explain best how I made this and how you could possibly make your own. So first things first though, if you know a bit about redstone, say like, I'm getting a bit of lag, such as how far it can travel, how you use it to do things, then I'd skip this and go on to the second episode when it comes up. That'll be covering logic gates. This episode is only about the absolute basics, hence its name up above the video. So today we are going to be learning what is redstone, how it works, inputs and outputs, NOT gates, also I've put in brackets repeaters there, you'll see why in a bit, repeaters and clocks. So we're going to launch straight into it of what is redstone. So you usually find redstone about 1 to 20 blocks up from the very bottom of the map, and you get about 4 of them at once, that's 3, 4 of them from one ore. So and then they spawn in about 2 or 3 blocks at once in one redstone vein. So really, you don't, for what we're going to be building overall, you need so much redstone, you'd have to be mining for quite a while. So what I've done is, of course, I've hacked all my items. So yeah, get over that. It's not that bad. And what redstone is you can place it down as a wire, and it's used to make electric currents, and it can be used for things like trap making, opening doors, and things like that. The list is pretty much endless. Really, it's not endless, but you know what I mean. And so you make things, and also using redstone dust, you make things called redstone torches. And what the next part is, which is inputs and outputs and how it works, we'll be covering those. So that's basically what redstone is. And yeah, so redstone works much like electric currents in circuits in electrical devices, and it works with, it has 2 states. There's an off state, which is what it is now, and an on state, or a powered state. Now the way it gets power can vary. One of them is via redstone torches, and you can also do them with different ones which I've not actually prepared, so I'll just quickly make them now. So you need a crafting square, get a sign for now, place that down, a stone pressure plate, which you only need 2 for now, which is good, a lever, which is that, and a stick actually, hang on, bear with me, I should have done this before, a lever, which is one of those, and a button, which actually I've got enough for. It's just 2 of those on top of each other, so don't need the wood. And what these do is they also provide power, so I do need that. What am I doing? The way these work is with the lever, in fact no, with the lever and the button, but not always with the lever. You can place the lever on the floor like that, but see how it connects to it. If you tap it, a lever toggles the input, toggles the state of it, so it goes on with 1 click, off with another click. So that's a lever. A pressure plate is pretty much the exact same thing. You put it at the end of a wire, and when you stand on it, it turns off. When you stand off it, it turns off. So it's only on for as long as you're standing on it. just pick that up again, get rid of that. And a button, you have to put it on top of a block, and the way it gets power to it is the block that the button is touching, the redstone has to be touching it. So it can either go in the side, or you can put it on top as well if you want, and see how it will turn to the button, but that's not needed. So when you press it, it stays on for a bit, then turns off. So it's a brief input, which is what you saw on the very first thing at the very start. Another thing, I've got too much of this stuff. And then the last input is a torch. But the strange thing about a torch is, well, it's not strange, is that you can use it as an input and an output, which is the next part of this. So we'll go straight into that. And inputs and outputs are generally torches. So a torch can be used as an input where if the wire goes to the torch, it's an input. If the wire goes from the block that the torch is going to, it is an output. So if a torch receives input, so if the wire is on that goes to the block, the torch is off. So if the wire is off, like now, the torch is on. So if we provide power to the redstone dust, the torch turns off. This is known as the NOT gate, which was the next thing we were going to be learning, where it inverts the signal. So if you want to have it on, well, a normal one is you place the torch down and it turns the wire on. A NOT gate inverts it to turn it off. So you can see the output is the opposite of whatever the torch is. So the input is off. You can have it with the pressure plate as well. Input is off, output is on. Input is on, output is off. So that is how a redstone torch works. If that was a bit complicated, because I don't think I've explained that very well, you can see how if the redstone wire goes to the block like that the redstone torch is standing on, it'll turn off. Another way of doing this is by having it on the side of the block and providing power to the block as well. You'll see that if I just get rid of that, input is on, output is off. It's the same thing. As long as the power goes to the block that the torch is on, the torch becomes an output, but can also be used as an input. So the way an inverter is usually shown is as just a block like that. And then so input goes from 1. I've lost my pressure plate, is over there. So you can invert it, and it goes like that. Okay, so it's going dark now, and before we go to the next part, I need to explain something I forgot to show at the very start. Redstone input when it's on can only travel down wires 15 blocks. And you can see as it gradually gets darker until it eventually stops here, and the redstone power is no longer flowing. So it only flows for 15 blocks. To get around this, there are two ways of doing it, but they're both called inverters. And the way you do it is you put a NOT gate in, which inverts the power. So as it goes off, on even, it comes off. And we put another torch down to re-invert it, so it's inverted twice, so the input is on, then the output is also on, so that the current can be flown further. Let me just get rid of that torch and place it down there. Can be flown as long as you like. It's just every single time it delays it. You can spread these out as well and put that 15 long, so you don't have to do it as much. But that is how you invert it. But with 1.3, I think it was, so I think it was 1.3, he included a new block called the inverter block, which is built like that, and as you can see I've already got some down here. This is basically those blocks put into one block, so that you can get rid of those, place that down, and it will invert it like that, and not invert it, it will keep the current going like that. So as you can see the input is off and the output is off. Now the input is on and the output is on. You can also right click on that to delay it, so I've clicked it so it goes down to the 4th notch. It takes a bit longer. So that is a double inverter, or a delayer, or a diode, or a repeater, or however you want to call it. And that's all it does, is it lets you make circuits that go on longer than 15 blocks. So that is what lets me build big things like the thing you saw at the start, that thing over there, without hitting that limit. So we're going to go into the final thing now of this small little part, which is clocks. Okay, so to the final part of this video, it's going to be showing you what a clock is. Now what a clock does is it makes the output goes on and off and toggles, and it can go as fast as you like depending on how big the clock is. Now the simplest form of a clock would be a 1 clock, where you tie the input, the output even, to its input, so it goes all the way around. You don't have to make it this big, and basically this power will turn this one off to make so it lets it turn back on again, which will turn it off again, and it'll just keep flashing back and two like that. However, as you can see, a 1 clock flashes too fast, so Nox implemented it so that it would burn out. So this makes this one unstable. So what you can do is, you can't do it with an even number, because if you do it with an even number, then that will turn this one off, so this one will stay on, that one stays off. It's settled like that. So you need an odd amount of inverters, like so that it will just keep toggling. So that one turns off. See how that, and the way I've built this one, actually I should have built it round, but as this one isn't touching the block, you need to just put one up there so it will turn onto it. If you don't want to do that, because I prefer not doing it, you can just bring that one further down so that it points towards it. Well, I've done it again here, and then that'll make a 3 clock. But if in a sec, you can see that also burns out, because Nox decided that a 3 clock was also too fast, but it sets up fairly quickly again, but it's still unstable. So the stablest form of making one of these clocks is called a 5 clock, and you can probably guess why it's called a 5 clock, because it's got 5 inverters in it, and you'll find that this one is completely stable. So you can build these this way, and then bring out an output from anywhere you like, just as long as it doesn't turn them away. Well, actually no, yeah, it still works. Whereas the output will be constantly turning on and off. But because of the repeaters that came out in 1.3, there is a way of condensing that to make it a lot smaller and more compact, so that's quite big. So I'll build it here. What you can do is build one inverter and then put a delayer on it. Set this delay to set 1, 2, 3, 4, make that 4, and then put it back on itself. And that also creates a clock. You can't pull it from there. Oh yeah, you can't even. You can't bring it from there. You can bring it from there though. Anywhere else except from there. And the reason this works is it's a 1 clock, but that's got one tick delay, and this has got a 4 tick delay, so that makes it 5, which is the equivalent of a 5 clock. The output to that flashes the exact same speed as this one. And when I say tick, is when this turns off, or when any torch changes state, there's a very small delay. Which this is how this works. If it went instantly, these would all be flashing the exact same speed as the 1 clock, really, as they would all be flashing really quickly. So it's a delay that causes this to happen. We just need to make that delay long enough for it to be stable, whereas the delay in the 1 clock and the 3 clock is too quick, so it burns out. So that's this episode of these Redstone tutorials done. Hope you found it useful. I don't think I explained it as best as I could have. I'm not very good at explaining. Have you ever tried explaining something with the very, very start? You know how to do it, but it's very hard to explain it without using the terms that you've been using. So the second episode and onwards will be a lot better, as I'll be incorporating all these basics into them, so that I can explain it a bit easier. So hopefully you managed to learn something from that, and hopefully you enjoyed watching it. My name's Matt, and I'll be with you with the second episode. Hope you enjoyed it.